What's going on, guys? I'm Zach from the Lumios Post, where we talk about all things Pokemon, and today we are going to be talking about the Pokemon paradoxes that appear in Pokemon Violet. So this is going to be the future ones. If you want to see our video on the Scarlet ones, you can check that out right here. But this is going to be on the Violet paradoxes, and specifically, like, why they exist. Like, how Donphan became, or rather, why Donphan became Iron Treads. And before we go through each one of them individually, I'm just going to give a theory on these Violet paradoxes, these future paradoxes, from the get-go. And that's that they're not descendants. I think that there's a chance that these are not descendants of the Pokemon we see today. Iron Treads is not a descendant of Donphan. Iron Hands is not a descendant of Hariyama. And there's a reason why I think this. I mean, for one, they're all robots, right? I mean, they're literally robots. You know, the Scarlet paradoxes, they look like Pokemon. They look like organic beings. But these don't. They're all mechanical, and they all have that iron in their name. They have LED screens for their faces. You know, Iron Jugulus, that's the paradox of Hydreigon, literally, like, shuts down when it goes to sleep like a computer. And all of that just kind of makes me think that there's a chance that these are not actually the natural progression of evolution in these Pokemon. Iron Treads is not the natural progression of evolution in Donphan. Iron Thorns is not the natural progression of evolution in Tyranitar, but rather man-made Pokemon. And there's probably a good reason for why. I imagine that given that these are all metal, it gives very Age of Ultron vibes, right? So I imagine there was some kind of apocalyptic event in the Pokemon world that led to the destruction of many different Pokemon. And perhaps humans were able to get away from this, right? Like, we just jumped into a spaceship and went into space, and then when we came back down, we're like, oh man, all the Pokemon died. And so some scientists, or scientists plural, started trying to rebuild these Pokemon with like what we knew about them, but obviously having to use mechanical material, which would explain why these are all robots. And it's not that hard to believe that there could be like an extinction level event that led to us having to kind of rebuild these Pokemon. I mean, crazy stuff happens in the Pokemon world all the time. I mean, you have AZ has shot like the ultimate weapon and came back down and, you know, wiped out a whole nation at one point or something like that. Team Flare tried to redo that. You have meteors striking, legendary Pokemon waging war against each other, all kinds of things like that. So maybe something like that finally happened successfully to where it just wiped out everything. Or maybe even that these future Pokemon are not future like a set future, but a potential future, an alternate future even. Maybe they're from a world. This was proposed by my good friend Dusty Gogo, who you should totally check out if you haven't, because he's got a lot of cool thoughts in his brain as well. He proposed that maybe even these future paradoxes are pulled from, say, a timeline where Team Flare won. They shot off the ultimate weapon and it wiped out everybody, and it led to Pokemon having to be recreated in Team Flare's image, these perfect states. That could even explain why these Pokemon are so aggressive. You know, they see you in Area Zero and they charge at you because, you know, they were made by evil people. So maybe we're looking at something like that, alternate future, which I really, really like. But now we will just get into the idea that these are just truly natural progressions, and we will propose why they had to take on these types. Starting with Donphan. Donphan became Iron Treads. It picked up the Steel typing. Why is that? Well, you know, for one, because it's mechanical now. I feel like that's a given. But also, it's very likely that it just started leaning more and more into the whole rolling aspect of Donphan. And so it started getting kind of steel plating to kind of roll smoother, right? And be able to really tear through any kind of terrain and just keep going, not have to worry about that. So it leaned into that, picked up the Steel typing. Now let's talk about Cyclizar. Cyclizar did become a Paradox, Miraidon, and it changed its normal typing to the electric typing. Well, I propose that Cyclizar may have lost its fighting typing from Koraidon, become a normal type because humans were domesticating it. So maybe we're seeing a reverse of it here, and humans stopped domesticating it, so it got to run rampant again. But, you know, instead of Koraidon, it kind of now could run faster. It was less needing to fight things and more running. You know, you see Cyclizar running around in the wild in the game, so it just leaned into this trait and became super fast, so fast that you could start to see sparks of electricity off of it, and eventually these things became Miraidon. Now, next, we have a kind of fan favorite for some reason, and that is Iron Bundle. So I actually did a whole theory on this because Iron Bundle's got some weird stuff to it that may hint that it is actually from the past and not the future. But if we're to work with the idea that Iron Bundle is in the future, it's simple. Delibird no longer needed to fly, so it lost its ice flying type, and instead needed to be able to swim better, you know, like a penguin in our world. And so it adapted that water typing so that it could just, you know, swim around and zoom through the water rather than actually fly. And this could also be because its mechanical body was too heavy for it to lift up and fly, so it had to adapt to the water. But either way, that is why it picked up the water typing instead of its flying typing. Now we move into Volcarona, who is now Iron Moth. So I imagine that there's some kind of pollution, which could be why these Pokemon have to be mechanical, is so that they can have like a filter system for this pollution. And Volcarona just fully adapted to the pollution thing and became fire poison. It lost its bug typing because bug is a very natural typing, right? And that just died out, and it's now fire poison. In fact, maybe all kind of, I guess, natural typings, like I guess they would really just be bug and grass. Maybe they all died out over time, and so the bug and grass typing don't exist in this future. So Volcarona became fire and poison in Iron Moth, that is. Now we have Hariyama. Hariyama, this would be pretty simple, honestly. It's mechanical body, you know, you kind of work mechanics with electricity, and so it's able to dish out punches that now shoot shockwaves, you know. Maybe this is even a trait that it picked up from Pommet. I don't know, maybe there's some crossbreeding down the line. I don't know how it'd be possible for Hariyama and Pommet to reproduce, but hey, we're talking about a world where Wailord and Skitty can, so it's not that far-fetched that Hariyama and Pommet could, yeah. Okay, so we're going to go right away from this and into Hydreigon. So Hydreigon became Iron Jugulus, a dark flying typing. So it lost the dragon typing, which is pretty interesting, to be honest. You know, that was a choice, right? I imagine that this thing just needed to lean more into its flight. You know, you see its wings are kind of moving more now, you know? It's not really just kind of levitating, it's more flying. Maybe it lost its ability to levitate over time, and I don't know, maybe gravity increased. That's a joke, I don't really think that. But it just lost its use for levitation because it was replacing that ability with its Quark Drive ability, and so it just needed to fly on its own. So it picked up that flying typing so it could fly again. So I imagine there's something in between Hydreigon and Iron Jugulus that is grounded, and it got its ability to fly again, but this time not in the form of an ability, but in the form of the actual flying typing, and it actually being able to actually fly. Now we have Iron Thorns, Tyranitar's Paradox. What happened here? It went from a rock dark typing to a rock electric typing. Well, we actually get some insight into this. It's stated that Iron Thorns is actually pretty intelligent, and it doesn't like to fight. You know, the dark typing's the evil typing in Japan, so the implication here to me is that Tyranitar used to love to fight. It was kind of a meaner Pokemon, and over time it became more peaceful, and so that dark typing died out, and then obviously, similar to Hariyama here, it's kind of a mechanical body led to it getting a electric typing, making Tyranitar go from a rock electric or rock dark typing rather, to a rock electric type. And lastly, we have Iron Valiant. And this one is pretty easy to explain, to be honest. Iron Valiant, it's taken traits from Gardevoir and it's taken traits from Gallade, because over time it became kind of one line instead of a split evolution. And it specifically took Gardevoir's fairy typing and Gallade's fighting typing and merged those two. It no longer had a need for the psychic typing. Instead, it needed those secondary typings that those evolutions provided. So that's what it did. And naturally, by doing so, it took elements from Gardevoir, Gallade, and even Kirlia and Mega Gardevoir and Mega Gallade into its design, which is really cool. This is a really, really cool Pokemon. So yeah, be sure to let me know what you think of this. If you have theories of your own onto how these things changed, please let me know in the comments below. Also, be sure to let me know which of these Violet Paradoxes is your favorite. Be sure to also like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss any future videos we do on the Paradoxes or just whatever else weird having coming on this channel. I'm super excited about all the stuff we have in this channel, and I hope you guys are too. And if you want to stay up to date on that, liking the video so I know you like this kind of stuff, subscribing so it's in your little feed, and hitting the bell for notifications so that you are notified when I post is a great way to keep up with that stuff. Until next time, I will see all of you later.